Hello, friends. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to the Caste Conversation. I'm Pradeep Pariyar. Caste Conversation is a dialogue to understand the caste dynamics that affect our society, our lives, and our value system. Caste Conversation is an initiative of Dalit Life Matters Nepal to ignite solution-oriented dialogue to eliminate caste-based discrimination and untouchability. Today we are joined by a very special guest, Dr. Suraj Yengde. Needs no introduction actually. He is an Indian leading public intellectual and noted scholar of caste. He is the author of the bestseller Caste Matters. I have a Caste Matters with me, and co-editor of the award-winning anthology The Radical in Ambedkar. Dr. Yengde is currently a senior fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School and an inaugural postdoctoral fellow at the Initiative for Institutional Anti-Racism and Accountability at Harvard University. He is an academic activist and noted public intellectual in the transnational movement of Dalit rights. He is actively involved in building solidarity between Dalit, Black, Roma, Indigenous, Buraku, and refugee people in the Fourth World Project of marginalized people. Dr. Suraj Yengde, welcome to the Caste Conversation. Can you?
Thank you, dear brother Pradeep, for inviting me.
Thank you very much for joining with us. It's our pleasure to have you in Caste Conversation, Dr. Suraj. Last year, Dr. Suraj Yengde was in Kathmandu. Many of you get chance to hear him. His book, Caste Matters, was about to release that time. I can say that's the first time released in Nepal. I can say that, I can claim that. He gave a brilliant talk on why caste matters, not just me, but he has inspired many Dalit and non-Dalit youth to embark on the journey of academic discourse on the annihilation of casteism, Brahminical patriarchy, and its supremacy. Then I had an opportunity to visit his office at Harvard University, where he is now. And thank you very much for showing me around last year. It was a wonderful time with you. Let's begin today's caste conversation, Dr. Yengde. Why does caste matters? Floor is yours. You can take 10 minutes.
So at the outset, allow me to extend my gratitude to the young leader of Asia. We are very fortunate to have in you, Brother Pradeep, the kind of work you do and the leaderships you offer fearlessly without any hesitation. It's admiring, you inspire me, and also all the laurels that you bring in, be it the young global fellow or part of the World Economic Forum's young cadre, as well as the other important work you do as a policymaker, but also as an activist. I like you mostly because you are a very kind human being. And I think that's the representative of how we are shaped. Our attitudes and our upbringing has been shaped by reverence and compassion to others, because we know what it means to not have respect as well as not compassion to ourselves. So we don't replicate that, but we try to overcome that. And I think that is the pinnacle of how we should look at ourselves and how the world fails to identify us. I also see some very beautiful faces here who I know from last year. I would just like to give a shout out on my screen. I can see Tenzin, so pleasure to see you as usual. Also, I believe I have seen Rajan Sagar last time. The most exciting intellectual coming out of South Asia, Amar Vishwakarma, is here. We should be very seriously following his academic scholarship and also his potential that he's going to bring us to our table. So we're very fortunate to have a young intellectual leadership in you, Amar. We also have my dear friend from BAMSAFE, who continues to activate Ambedkarite politics very, very dearly. And I feel very happy to see you, Brother Raj Rajak, and my dear sister somewhere here hiding behind the mask of Zoom, Sarita Periyar, and her sister Paru as well, and all the family members right there. My love to you all. To dive into this conversation, Pradeep, I think it is very apparent, like with the way the conversations have been framed, um, the brutal killing of Nabaraj and his friends, owing to the caste discrimination, depicts that caste not only matters, but caste also kills. And it exterminates the human potential of other people. The people who inflict such kind of harm have lost the option to look out for ways to communicate, negotiate, and extend a space for all of us to at least talk. Caste prohibits you from being anything but human. You can go to the level of beastliness. You can transcend the boundaries of your own empathies and become more cruel. It is in this fact that we see not only Nabaraj, but the uncountable, but the reported 25 caste atrocities that have committed on the Dalit community in Nepal is extremely striking and also depictive of how casteism, funneled through the Brahminic violence of the Brahmin supremacy, takes its shape, be it a liberal politics or be it a Maoist revolutionary politics. We have seen a tone deaf silence as well as a very cold uh, reception by the leadership of the Brahmins of Nepal, as well as the other progressive circles. But however, I would also like to give a shout out to those non-Dalits, especially I was personally very inspired to meet them in Nepal, who are so devoted and committed to the project of Dalit liberation. And I think that genuineness I have uh, failed to see in numbers, at least in my experience in India. And I think there is something to do with the Nepali identity, where a strong resonance of nationalism interjects. But yet again, we continue to put out dead bodies of young Dalits. And this is because I've said time and again, uh, the capacity of Dalits to push humane dialogue, to eject and efface uh, the brutalities and insecurities of humanhood, and to lay bare nakedness of our own violence, is what makes a caste society extremely vulnerable. Because caste has nothing to do with humanness. Like race, like the divide, artificial divide between gender, are all framed around establishing a supremacy of one group over the other. And it is this artificiality that we continue to hold. Our parents lied to us certain things in the childhood. When we would ask them, there are how many stars in the sky, when we looked through the beautiful ambience of one summer night or wintry night, our parents or grandparents told us there are 100 million stars, and we believed them. When we asked them, why do we have to eat at specific times only, and why not after this time? They told us that's a ritual, and we accepted. When they refused an entry or respect to the Dalits or other caste people, we asked them the question, why do you do that? They said, this is how it has been. So what we are seeing is the normalization of our parents' stupidity is what we carried on. Our conscience has also taught us many things. Today, we don't believe there are 100 million stars. We believe there are many more stars. What has happened is we have accepted evolution as our mindset. And so we are willing to acknowledge certain rationalisms. However, when it comes to the caste codes, we are unwilling to let go of those artificialities and the lies that our parents injected us as they were injecting us the nutrition for body as well as the nutrition for mind. And that's why the phenomenon of why caste matters is because why are there still castes? There should not have been castes. Caste should have been bygone. And I think it's a hope in a Nepali society, at least on an international political forum. Nepal is probably the only country that acknowledges caste as a problem at United Nations and other bodies, which itself is courageous in many ways. And now, if that is the first step, we expect Nepal to become the leading example of how to annihilate and abolish caste. We would hope to bring that inspiration to our own context as well. And I think that's why, Brother Pradeep, the idea that caste matters, the idea that Dalit lives matters, the idea that people who are on the vulnerable, who are working class, who are oppressed, who live on the pittance of the dominant class, the ruling majority, or in Indian caste context or in South Asian caste context, the ruling minority. I call them oppressor minority castes who rule us. And I think it is upon them and it is upon us that we look at each other and establish a relationship based on our caste.
Thank you, Suraj, for a wonderful start. Actually, I was supposed to ask same question, but you answered some of this already. In the last 6 months, 20 Dalit were killed in Nepal. Dalit girls and women are raped and killed. More importantly, many go unreported. The same incident repeat in India too. You have also witnessed the Black Lives Matter movement in the light of the current Hathras rape incident in India, killing of George Floyd in the US, and the rape and murder of 12-year-old Samjana Kami in Nepal recently. How do we see this unfaithful series of atrocities as an academic activist?
See, the point is we have to understand caste society is a violent society. For it to survive, it has to produce violence. For it to maintain its legitimacy, it has to attack, and it has to attack the most vulnerable. And it has to continue to divide the people based on flimsy, as I said, falsified ideas. It has to continue to preach to the world about it being the most violent, most non-violent, as well as most compassionate, and as they use the word sanskari, a very cultured society. Caste society needs death of Dalits for its survival. It has to eat Dalit bodies for it to survive. And that's the appetite for it. If there are no Dalits dying, caste society will die eventually. But for it to kick in and thrive like a healthy baby, it needs more Dalit bodies, and more important, it needs more younger Dalit bodies, because the younger Dalit bodies have the potential to subvert the caste norms. They have the potential to dismantle this system. Because when you love a person, you are actually voiding caste norms. Caste society teaches you how to love. A violent society cannot teach anybody how to love. It will only teach how to hate. It trains children from childhood how to hate other people. And how do you hate other people? By starting micro forms of exclusionary practices. They are not wholesome. Nobody will call you names immediately, but there are little practices. There are 122 types of untouchabilities that people practice without even recognizing they're practicing untouchability. Right from not even allowing you to enter the house to the way they treat you once you enter the house. These are subtle practices of untouchability. We inherited it. Nobody told us, hey, this action, the kind of act you are doing amounts to untouchability. We don't know yet. We don't have description of what amounts to untouchability. And that's why what we do is we normalize the practice of untouchability. And once we normalize that, the next step obvious is to be the aggressor of the system, because we don't know. Since in the patriarchal world, men are habituated to treat and exercise certain power dynamics upon women. Now, they might not identify themselves as patriarchal or violent men, but if you find out the nooks and crooks of how you treat a woman in this context, you will recognize yourself that there are many problems in our existence as well. So we have not given a space to that conversation to take place. And that's why what we have is, unless and until Dalit as well as other oppressed caste people in various contexts, because you see, Dalit is a unique position because they were untouchables of society. No community in the world has been maintained as untouchables for so long. Untouchability is the last hope of humanity. Who do you stop excommunicating? Who do you stop not seeing? Who do you stop not touching? You don't do this to a human being. You do this to something you never want to see. It's like you have seen a bad dream and you never want to go and sleep in the same room. You've already have those traumas. And so what encourages an individual, a society, a nation to exercise such form of violent practices? Why would you treat anybody lower than you? What is the gratification you get from treating anyone lower? And based on what? Based on false ideas. There is no merit in any caste society. However, what we do is we treat Dalit live bodies like myself and like yourself as untouchables, as impure. And if you're impure and if you're untouchable, that means your life is designated to the subhuman level. And when you're subhuman, you have no rights. You have no aspirations. You cannot love. You cannot grow. You cannot thrive. You cannot accumulate wealth. You cannot build big houses. You cannot own companies. You cannot own farmland. You cannot run enterprise. You cannot run policy centers. You cannot be an intellectual. That's the onus of making one an untouchable. It's beyond the just idea. It's the materiality. And that's why if you become a big intellectual, or if Amar becomes a big intellectual, they will still identify him as a Dalit intellectual. Because there is a certain investment in that. There is a certain empathy of violence in that. And that's why the brutalities that we continue to witness is because caste is the guiding principle. And caste is not just the guiding principle, it's your religion. It's your politics. It's your culture. It's your temples. And more importantly, it's the economic order that we operate in. We have to find out how land relations, we have to find out how the political economy of this structure works. Until and unless we square that, we won't be able to get satisfactory answers as to why such kind of atrocities continue to perpetuate.
Even though we have a lot of aspiration, hope, though we are talking these issues in this 21st century. So let me take you a bit in different topics. You are co-editor of the award-winning anthology, The Radical in Ambedkar. Dr. Ambedkar wrote the Indian Constitution 70 years ago. He made an effort to restore equal rights and justice to marginalized communities and to abolish untouchability. But the discrimination still persists. Why do you think Ambedkar works is still relevant in the modern times, and particularly in South Asia, especially in South Asia?
Simply because Ambedkar's children are still alive. And that has to do with, that is in two ways. One is he hoped for annihilation of castes early on in 1936. And castes have not been annihilated. Castes have been penetrated into more modern forms of technologies. Now, caste is no more only confined to rural areas and all. Caste is in social media. Caste is in what we are doing. Zoom. Caste has penetrated into, it has, as if it has found its way to adjust into modern forms. That's why the modernity that was supposed to bring my friend, the excellent sociologist, Suryakant at IIT, he calls this as the modern Hindu, the caste modern. The caste modern is basically adopting the modern values, and then yet being caste, and by being that you are committed to capitalism as well as you're committed to Brahminism. These are the twin towers, and so Ambedkar's kind of influence through constitution, but beyond that, remains is because Ambedkar's children, like us, believe in his project of eliminating all of these practices. And when Ambedkar says annihilation of castes, he's not just talking about one caste. He's talking about the entire structure of castes. And then he is like a very definitive surgeon. He is giving us many reasons to articulate our own aspirations so that we can also be treated as equals in the society. And what we ask for, this is the basic thing. What are Dalits asking for? Are Dalits asking for looting of rich people's wealth? Are Dalits asking for genocides of oppressors? Are Dalits asking for uprooting all the landlords and feudal lords? Dalits are asking for basic human rights. They are asking for dignity. They are asking for respect. Now, if you can't give this, then just think about yourself. Do you even qualify to live alongside other human beings? If I am unable to give you, Pradeep, a respect that you deserve, if I'm unable to acknowledge your potential, your smartness, your swagger, do I really deserve to speak with you or even share this space with you? Not only this, but this space on this planet with you. If I'm not willing to recognize you as a human being, but declare you someone who is subhuman even before we have tested. And the point is, you are way smarter than all these Brahmins that I've seen from Nepal. Simply because they lack the capacity to develop radical humanism. By your presence and the presence of fellow Nepali Dalit community is to give that shining light and opportunity for Nepali society to at least recognize themselves. Right now, if we are caste blind. And by that, we don't mean to say caste neutral. We are literally blinding ourselves from looking at other issues. And what happens that is we lose a lot of human potential. You see, discrimination harms a society, not just mentally, but also financially. Because you can't keep a society, a group of people declared as lower and one people thinking they are superior. When they are superior, they are not performing well. Tell me how many Brahmins have innovated modern technologies for humanity. They had the most education for so many years. If they were smart enough, they would have created so many innovations. They have created so many new technologies. They all lie. They say 2000 years ago, we created airplane and mobile phone. Now, this is the kind of losers who have produced nothing phenomenal. Look at the Jews. The minority community continues to be creating so many innovations that it has the most number of Nobel Prize. Comparatively, Brahmins should have been the most Nobel Prize winners. There is something fault here. If Dalits were given same opportunity even 500 years ago, we would have surpassed the Jews in claiming the world's most innovations. Our first generation is now educating. And look what we are doing. Look at us, look at each other's. Look at how we have really produced a new space for ourselves to develop what we are calling is radical humanism, a humanity that we can all embrace together. And this is the potential the world has to understand, that this community which was persecuted, this community which was oppressed, this community which was left at the margin and continues to do, yet manages to remove their head out of the pit and think themselves as respected humans. This is something very extraordinary. If you are beaten for so many thousand years, you will still live in that. But we don't succumb to that. We aim to thrive into this, and not only thriving for ourselves. That's why I say, we are compassionate people. Once we do something good, we don't want to do good only for ourselves. In our goodness, everybody is involved.
Yeah. So we involve everyone. So that's true, very true. Suraj, in your book also, in your book Caste Matters, you have mentioned categories of Dalits. Given the different takes on caste questions, how can the categories be unified in a collective alliance to engage in the caste conversation?
We need to be also candid in our approach to tackling caste. And that's why I made those categories to identify the various other subcaste as well as class aspirations. We cannot divorce the multiplicities that shape us. Having a focus, every liberation struggle needs a focus, and that focus is to liberate ourselves. We have firm principles and guiding lines. We don't rely on the oppressor. Even if they are benevolent, they need to find their own spaces to fight this. I make this argument in the book as well, that the dominant caste communities don't need to occupy the lit spaces, because Dalit spaces are made in a certain way. The empathy, there are various ways, because we live in a different world. Each caste is its own world. It has its own rules. It has its own ethics. It has its own culture. You and I can celebrate certain TV shows or certain songs of a commonality, but otherwise we have a different, we have a different lifestyle. If you look, and that's the uniqueness of that. And so whenever people from the dominant caste kind of come into Dalit spaces, we have been telling them that you are welcome, but you're only welcome as a representative of anti-caste Brahmins or anti-caste Khatris or anti-caste. You can't just come and hang out with us, because that's just boring. And you will come and we know what you think, and we are criticizing you. You will also criticize yourself, but that's not going to work. It's not a festival of gossips or complaints. It is actual project. So what we need to do in the categories, as I said, is we have various kinds of at least in the Indian context that I observed, where different modulations to Dalit being, to the Dalit spacing, and I think they need to be identified also, because what we do is we homogenize our aspiration. That's not possible. That's just not possible. That's why everybody says, "Oh, you are a Dalit. Why are you not fighting for Dalit rights?" Well, he or she doesn't want to, perhaps. Why do you put the moral burden on other Dalit to always fight? What is your role in that? And I wanted to give that recognition. And of course, many Dalits didn't like that, who are part of those categories. But that's important. We need to speak truth, and truth is our guiding document, where we need to find out various truths in various spaces, various visions. And I am I got criticized a lot for that specific chapter, but I mean, criticism is like we eat every day as we consume our food. It's not new to us, but we cannot lose the moral compass, because it's also morality that we want to find out. That's why the criticism has to be external, but also critically looking internally. And I think that's how I was trying to develop the argument, by not just nitpicking one. And as a scholar, you have a responsibility to be composite, to be representative.
Suraj, you have spoken about Dalit love also, and said that it is simple and therefore misunderstood. Could you tell us more about this? Actually, everyone love to talk about the Dalit love. Maybe, maybe you are showing something.
You see, the Dalit love is an opportunity given by Dalits to the rest of the world. It's an opportunity for you to humanize yourself. It is an opportunity for you to recognize yourself in the eyes of the others. We usually don't do that, and that's why we don't have empathy. You know, what we do is caste divorces you from your humanity. It doesn't encourage you to think about other female as a female, other male as a male. You see it as a subject that you can pounce on, you can inflict atrocities, you can rape, and you can inject various forms of fears into other people. Dalit love is actually diluting and melting all of that. The hard barriers that we have created between us and others, we don't want to make that. We want to make us all, and it's a conception that we need to live by, because love has only kept your ancestors and my ancestors afloat. If there was no love amongst us, we would have burned down these villages, we would have killed these landlords, we would have surrendered all forms of empathies to the backyard, and we would have just given a violent response. So when people say that there are many violent groups, I don't see any more non-violent group than Dalits, because of the time scale that they have been living, and yet have an occasion to think about humanity, love, and empathy as a moral arc for their survival. And that's why what happens is, when a Dalit extends love, that is misunderstood by society, because the society is not used to accepting love, more so from a community or a person who they think they are filthy, who they think they are impure, who they think they are outcast, they are unworthy of human respect. What do you do with that? You are taught to hate one person. You are taught that that person is violent, that person is lazy, that person can rape you, can commit murder, is incapable of any form of human empathy. You have been told about that person, and you have never interacted with that person. Now all of a sudden you interact, and all the person does is to respect you, to treat you as a respectable, honorable, dignified person, to honors you, to gives you more respect than you ever received in your life, even in your house. What do you do with that? That's the misunderstood aspect of Dalit love. Even in small interactions, many people don't understand how we exercise love, how we try to take everybody under our compassions. How do we try to offer leadership to this community? Because a community that is inflicting violence has lost every other moral right to even represent anybody. And so Dalits offer us as a collective nation an occasion to work under their leadership. And I think that's why Dalit love is far more transcendental. It's not confined to the cheap love that we exchange. It's more spiritual. It's more ethical. It runs like in our veins. We have not theorized that experience. If we think deeply, we can look into our grandmothers and grandfathers' eyes and see how powerfully they were injecting to love other people. They knew they were sheltering us because they knew this society is brutal. It's casteist. They have seen it all. They have on their skin of the lives that they have lived. It's the fear that they have been in their heart. But yet, when they embraced you as a grandchild, they were giving specific modes and they were communicating with you that, do not give up on love. And that's why in our households, there are various ways we talk, and our parents are always trying to tell us how to, and they might not always use the word love, but there is love. And that's why the Dalitality, the Dalit being cannot proceed without the essential armor of Dalit love. And Dalit love has been our protection guard, because we could empathize, we could love each other. We never gave up on loving each other. As a community, in spite of our differences or whatever that may be, we all came together at the end of the day. We spend some time with each other. We grieve together. We celebrated together. Even in our cries, in our tears, we find spaces of solidarity with each other. And it is no accident that anywhere in the world or in our societies, there is an atrocity on anybody. You will see Dalits are leading that anti-violence or whatever protests that are doing anti-human. Why? That's because it is Dalit love that is our guiding principle. It is the vision of that Dalit love is what keeps us and the world afloat.
Actually, we wanna learn and talk on different issues. That's why I'm jumping in one to another topics. So let us move to another heated debate. Always when we talk about the caste, and there's a comes about another issues, reservation always comes together. So caste and reservation have always attracted divided opinions. You
That's
take
right.
reservation policy as an affirmative action. How do you explain reservation when it encounter resentment and a strong dissent, particularly from the so-called upper caste?
I mean, upper caste should be grateful that we are asking only for reservations. We are not asking more than that. If we ask more than that, then they will lose everything. So they should be grateful that we are just confining our demands to reservation only. But we should, in fact, I am of the opinion we should ask more than reservations. In fact, the whole idea of reservation is basically a policy. And that policy only comes to you once you reach that level. But the steps to reach that level are enormously disadvantaged for the people to reach that level. If I have to get the benefit of a scholarship of reservation in a college, medical college, engineering college, I have to go to that college. I have to qualify until that level. You know those barriers here? And that's why reservation is also limiting. It's not giving access to all Dalits. It's only giving access to few Dalits. We should ask for an equal share in national income, in national finances, in the treasuries, as well as the land that produces wealth, as well as in every wealth. Whatever wealth creation we as a nation do, we should have equal share. Kanchiram ji used to say, jiski jitni sankhya bhari, uski utni bhagedari. Whoever's representation, whatever your representation is in, you should have that share. If we stop asking reservation and we say we should have caste-wise representation, then Brahmins will lose a lot. In India, at least, Brahmins are 3.5%, but they are represented in 48% spaces in majority of them. If we ask caste-wise representation, where will 45% Brahmins go? So it is a great favor on them that we are constitutionally demanding all of that. And we can actually think about how to channel more of such energies to find, let's say, other avenues addition to reservation. People, reservation is equated again to merit and non-merit. So you should ask one thing: if people in Nepal are meritorious, how many world's top institutions are there in Nepal? Why is Nepali economy still relying on the donor-based agencies? Why have you not created an independent, your own autonomous economy where you don't have to rely on anyone? Why are we still beggars of worlds? We need donations from world banks and other institutions. So these beggars have no right to tell us about merit and all. They themselves have made themselves beggars on our name. They ask money for us. So we cannot treat them with any form of, reverence. And the people who want to constantly parade the idea of merit equals talent and smartness is, again, we should look at our societies. Why are they still developing, or are rather underdeveloped? Or there is something fraught in that. And why is there so much economic inequality? Why are certain section of Nepali elites operate in New York and Boston circles, where rest of the communities of Nepalis are still living in poor conditions? There is something very vicious about that. And we need to diversify our options. We should ask beyond reservation. Reservation is limiting. It's just giving chance to a few. We should ask for more representation. We should ask for more share in whatever nation produces or whatever. What we do is we put so much in nation's coffers through our labor, and we get very few in return. If we start calculating the amount of work Dalit men and Dalit women do, which is informal in sector, which is not recognized, which is not put in paper, whose papers are not recorded. If you start doing that, and if we give a measurement to, if you're doing a farm work, this is the kind of added points you make to the treasury. And let's make an aggregate of national as to who works what. If you're doing the lowest job, the filthiest job, highest point you get. If you're being a priest in temple, you get 1 point. If you do the worst job that is given, you make 10 points. If we aggregate that, and according to the percentage of the community, you will see you are actually making Nepali economy an economy that can at least face or support its own people. But in return, what you get is very extremely limiting avenues, and that's confined to reservation only. If you say, I am a person who is going to give $100, and in return, I would at least expect $90. But if you see an aggregate, you're only getting $1 in return. Where is $99 going? And that's the kind of looting that the caste people do that. Do in a very smart way. They don't want us to ask about it. In fact, their children going to private schools and subsidies that the Nepali government is offering is based on your labor, your ancestors' labor. They never paid you. You were made a landless laborer. And what landless laborers has right? You produce so much, you make their children rich, they become a big big shots in their own field. But upon whose cost? It is the cost upon our ancestors. Our ancestors paid, our ancestors worked hard, and their labor was never recognized. And now we are asking that if you wanna talk about reservation, if you wanna talk about it as unfair policy, repatriate us, give us whatever you deserve of our labor, and give us in hard cash. Don't give us in, we need money, and also we need land, because at least in India, there is a law. If you work on a land for 10 years, that land belongs to you. We have been working on that land for 2000 years. Yet our kids and our what we saw with the unfortunate incident of Manisha Valmiki, working on people's farm. Our girls who are raped across in villages are working on other people's land. And that's why my demand is very clear. We have asked for, and this is coming from Ambedkar and Kanshinam, we want lands. We cannot afford to lose out. We want land. If people say to me, there is no land, then the question is, people are living in air or what? There is a land. We have to find, because without land, there is no dignity. Without land, and because we know how to till land. A person who is exploiting our labor doesn't know how to till a land. We only know how to be creative innovators to produce something out of the land. We also want guns for self-protection, because we cannot let this happen where a person who is using violence to threaten and intimidate us and continues to subjugate us and rape our daughters and murder and strangulate them brutally, to live like that. We won't. And according to, there is an Indian law, Prevention of Atrocities Act, the government is binded to provide arms. And third is, we want separate settlements in the country, where, at least in the Indian context, we cannot have minority in at least in Indian structure. There are 10 Dalit houses in a village, and there are 100 dominant caste people houses. Now these people, they are so a lack of courage that they attack minorities. If you are really courageous, why don't you attack 100 and 100 Dalits? Let's have a fair shot. But they don't even have that. And Ambedkar was very concerned about that. They attack the people who are don't have land, don't have money, don't have good houses, don't have any savings, don't have any resources at their disposal, and there are small minority numbers. They attack them, and this is the chivalry and the merit of this caste society.
Suraj, actually, we have some questions from our friends also. I just want to, you mentioned most of the things, but I just want to share these questions. Maybe if you have anything to add, you can add on. So we have two questions on reservation policy. One from Raj Khadka, PhD, Canada. What is your position on reservation for Dalits in various political employment, civic organization, and government bodies as an affirmative policy? Can such policy contribute towards systemic change? And follow-up question from Sujita Chaudhary from US, is reservation enough to uplift status of Dalit in the country like Nepal, India, maybe we can call South Asia? What could be more better approach, additional step towards the better society? If you can be a brief, that would be great because we have more questions with us.
No, I think I think I can club the both questions very briefly to respond as political reservations are not really helpful. It produces tokens, and that's why we have many, and that's the genius of Gandhi's politics, where he took away, he made us perpetual, because if you are having political reservations, you are a minority. In an electoral parliamentary democracy, a minority cannot win unless you take a favor of majority, and Dalits are designated minorities. You cannot easily assimilate. You can call yourself Hindu, but Hindus will still treat you as a minority. And I think that's why a political reservation is really comes at the harm of Dalits. There has to be more robust policy. What Ambedkar argued till the end of his life was separate electorates. We need to elect our own people. Why will a Brahmin elect our people? This is a mockery of justice. And they used this thing of they called it, this whole national politics and all. There is no thing as a nation if people are divided, And so right now, a Dalit candidate has to rely on dominant caste. These are oppressor caste. He has to rely, or she has to rely on the landlords or the people who want to oppress them to vote them. Now you tell me, is that really possible? That person doesn't want you to leave the farm. How the hell will the person going to help you? But reservation in economic and, the jobs and other sectors have relatively played important role, because if there is no reservation, there is nothing else we have, right? And so I will go further ahead by refining the reservation policy, which is to actually, if you want to, decrease the tension of the reservation like policy, especially when it comes to people from dominant caste and people from the oppressed caste, is to start have a common schooling across. Don't have private schools. Don't have special treatment for kids. Let the kid of the prime minister and the kid of a peasant who is working in one of the hilly areas in Nepal go to the same quality school. Have them same types of clothes, have them same type of nutrition and same syllabus. And then second, give them the facilities to thrive. Meaning, if they are living in hilly areas and they don't have, give them the world-class boarding school. Let the prime minister's son and the peasants or the servant's son study together. The opportunities, what reservation is actually doing is reservation is giving us that opportunity that was not given in the first place. If opportunities had been given since the first, every time, we would not have had this, the problem against reservation. And to say how effective and how. What was the question from Chaudhary? You said something, I kind of missed that.
If there is other better approach, additional steps towards the better society, there is anything else beside the reservation policy?
So we should understand reservation is not going to liberate us. It's going to offer us the space. What will liberate us is putting more people. Doesn't mean reservation has to go. Reservation has to be more robust. I'm asking for more reservation, which means more representation. And that representation has to be based on the percentage. Every democracy works on how much representation you bring. And democracy can only operate with if there are 17% Dalits. If there are no 17% Dalits in this space, we are missing out a lot. Similarly, if there are 4% Brahmins and they're represented in 70% positions, there is a problem. And I think we need to democratize that very aspect of how to propose new society. But as I said, in addition to the education of giving a common education, we also want to provide an opportunity for the children, the younger children, to be treated not as what happens is basically within the education system. We all know the specific aspirations kind of change, and how we develop. What we need to do is, in addition to education, we also need to make sure that the health is taken care of, because these are the aspects we thrive for. See, why are we trying to get good jobs? Why are we trying to get because this is the basic human necessity. We need good healthcare. If there is a good healthcare, if there is a free healthcare, prime minister's children going to the same hospital as the peasant who's going, we will have we'll have no worry, and that will create more harmonious society. Right now what we have is, we have limited jobs, we have limited resources, and there are so many people trying to acquire that, and that's why there is a fight. But what we could do instead is, we could expand these resources, not let few people control it, not few people confine it to themselves. And these are mostly Banyas and Brahmins who do this kind of things, because that's their traditional capital. But if you expand that, and if you democratize that, the more resources we have, the more harmony at least we will try to strive. And it's obviously, if you have three rotis and there are 10 people, it's going to be a conflict. But if you're able to at least create 9 rotis, 10 people can share that 9 rotis. But we can't expect 10 people to share 3 rotis. It's not going to fulfill anybody's desire. And I think that's how I was trying to propose, through having this overall change on a very grassroots structural level from start on.
Yeah, thank you. That's a wonderful answer, actually. We have more questions, so if you be brief, that would be great, because I want to take more questions. So Bibisika from Oxford asks, in deep Brahmanizing academia, how do we see the engagement of non-Dalit upper caste researcher researching Dalit lives? Should non-Dalit researcher be permitted to research Dalit lives that turns them into secondary subject of study instead of collaborators, while non-Dalit upper caste researchers continue to be the gatekeepers of the knowledge? How can researcher and research be inclusive of Dalit voices and writers in their research?
We need to acquire positions of power, and once we do that, you promote your own people. I'm very with full biases, I'm very confirmed that I want to push my people. The reason being, the dominant caste people, they have been controlling for so long, and even in their benevolence, I don't find any pleasure. You do you, and that's why. So what happened is, the dominant caste people who researched on Dalits did not liberate Dalits. Because it's like a rich man researching poor people's life. Do you really want a rich man for poor people to be free? It's like a landlord trying to research the life of peasants. He will only offer a solution for them to be more better peasants, but he will not let them leave the farm. He will not let them, thrive, go to big metropoles and, succeed. That's what is happening. And the question is, it's the question on the dominant caste to think for themselves. We definitely don't want you to do more research on us. You have to do research on your own community. I tell my Brahmin friends who are excellent scholars, I say, when will you start writing about your own family members who are as cruel as the people you write about? When is the moment when it's going to start talking about your father, your grandmother, or your own caste men and people? That's why we have so limited. See, that's the thing. Every year, at least 10 books come out on Dalits, and 1 or no book comes on Brahmins. So what we are studying the wrong problem. It's not the problem of caste is not Dalit problem. It's the people from the dominant caste whose problem. We should study their psychology. What is encouraging them to inflict this kind of, and I think that's why the whole moral call on Dalits now immediately have to be the egalitarian utopians. All of a sudden. And Dalits have to now take the responsibility of, responding to all of this is just as ridiculous. And I think Dalits who are researchers, who are conducting research, should conduct research with pride and should be proud that they are conducting research in their own field, whichever they like. It is not the onus upon you. It is the onus upon the oppressors who have to answer this. And if you feel their scholarship is not helping you, you can just reject, you can just move on. But if you feel that the scholarship is helping you and it's something else to do, you can then try to utilize their space, this cultural capital, and create more spaces for people like yourself. It's even at Harvard, we have Brahmin friends who are scholars here. Their PhD students also tend to be Brahmins. So it's not like they are not doing it. Brahmins are very shrewd. They know they are doing it. But it immediately becomes a responsibility on us to why do you have so many Dalits, or why should a Dalit scholar only do certain things? I think, I want Dalits to write on NASA. I want them to do research on Venus and all of that, fact. And let us not confine ourselves only to social sciences. We need to become ace researchers in every field. And we have an excellent researcher, Ramesh Sunam, whose work I recently got to know, who is in Japan, excellent, scholar or in his own field, studies migration. And that's what we need to do. Be the next Einstein of our community. Be the next Newton of our community. Don't live in a medieval past and just keep telling us false stories that we were so great people, Indian or whatever, South Asian civilized, Hindu civilized. There's nothing great as such. If we were very great, we would have had a lot of virtues in this. You now need to become the modern, heroes and sheroes of our community.
That's very true. You are very active in building solidarity between Dalit, Black, Roma, Indigenous, Buraku, and refugee people in the Fourth World Project of Marginalized People. Why is allyship important?
I mean, the point is, we live in a world where we share the pain of others. If you see somebody is being brutalized on the streets anywhere in the world, our heart pains. When we see the images, when we see the videos, when we saw George Floyd, or when we see anything of a brutal human nature. And that's the normal, natural solidarity. We are not even trying to becoming, it's of course a political statement, but it's a human empathy. If I'm walking down the street and if I see a group protesting against something, it's natural I will go and talk to them. What's happening? Tell me, educate me. And people do that. So why do I do that? I'm not trying, this is how it is. I am just trying to inquire and trying to connect with other people. And if there are people who are undergoing pain and atrocity like me, I will develop more alliance with them. I will try to extend my support, share resources, and try to identify my sense of being, in this. And I think we need to radically transform how we develop alliances. It cannot be petty alliances based on projects. It is the liberation of all of us. And that's why I say, even if an oppressed person of any marginalized community is suffering, I identify myself with that. And if I identify myself with that, I want to make sure whatever resources I have at my disposal, be it me writing to their prime minister, or to their home minister, or to their foreign minister, I will do that. If it's a Brazilian peasant who are still fighting for their rights, or the Amazonian tribals whose land has been taken by this lunatic president of Brazil, I want to make sure, because the Amazonian tribe people perhaps might not have the same access that I might have. So I want to utilize my privileges so I can help other people. And I would expect likewise. And that's why alliances are so important, because alliances are created for future work and current survival.
I can make a follow-up question on this. Ashish Gautam from New Delhi asks, other than mainstreaming the anti-caste movement, how would building solidarity with other marginalized groups help the cause? Not to say it is ineffectual in itself, just that wouldn't it be more judicious to build a movement in India which inform the upper caste of their own faults?
There's already a movement, right? I mean, the point is there are movements already existing. What we need to do is, we cannot create a new movements. In India, Bamsef is one of the most striking moments who has created results. It's one of the most organized movements, and brother Raj Rajak, who follows the movement and who is himself a cadre, knows that well. It's a movement rooted in education and developing more social harmony. It is also a political statement which create. We need to identify the spaces where there are not more solidarity, where people don't know about it. It's very unfortunate, Pradeep, that people belonging to, across the world, people don't know much about Dalits. People, because the interlocutors, our representatives of our countries and our societies, undermine this cause, did not share. It was like during the apartheid era, when there would be especially the United Nations politics would take place, apartheid government would not at all want to talk about apartheid. Why would it want to, right? But there were other friendly nations, even India included, who called out the apartheid in South Africa early on in the late 1940 onwards. And that's why we could have a momentum. It, of course, took 40 solid years of constant struggle that produced the revolutionary success that they had. Similarly, in our context, we need to create more international alliances. We need to create more support for our community, because we are the persecuted community. We cannot live under the imagination that we are free people. That we are the people who have rights. We don't have rights. We have paper rights, and paper rights can be crumbled and thrown into dustbin. That's what happens when you see the enormous protests and the new assaults that can continue to commit on the civic and political rights of our people.
Still, we have a few more questions. So I'm thinking to wrap up within 10 minutes, or what's your time schedule? Can I go a little bit longer, or what's your schedule? Can we go 10 more minutes? Okay. Friends, we'll go more 10, 15 minutes. We have a question from Benita Adhikari. I repeatedly find myself enraged internally in having discussion with people who think affirmative action and positive discrimination policies have done nothing to address equity. These people often are people who I love, close family members. How do I get past this disagreement and my internal rage, maneuver the discussion towards a healthy dialogue? What kind of tactics have been helpful in neutralizing the forceful one-sided argument towards helpful dialogue within the family and close circles? So this is, I think, young people want to discuss with their family, but there's a disagreement and because their loved one, so they can't hold the, you got it, my point, I think so. Suraj, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, now that's the thing. That is an unresolved problem in the world. The problems within the four walls of houses, I don't think, we have, and I'm with Ms. Adhikari, who was asking this question, because I was talking to a 79-year-old activist from Punjab, in fact, yesterday, and he told me that convincing parents is out of the scope. You can't do it. He just said that, and I was laughing, and I was like, he really said it, and he just gave his experience. He was a revolutionary, he was a part of a internationalist movement, and quite a profound intellectual in his own right, who studies Vedas, himself being a Shudra, and then he explained that when he was young, he was more revolutionary, inspired by Bhagat Singh and all the movements. And he wanted his parents to let him go for a protest that was happening in Delhi from his hometown. His parents refused. And then he told his father, "You're not going to survive till 21st century. I am. So I'd rather get on the train that's going to go to 21st century." And what he did was he basically said, "This is what I want to do." Right. And at some point, we are, we cannot really expect, one of the things I observed at least is the people who are bigots can be potentially perhaps be changed through their children. At least parents listen to their children, right? When they come and they talk, there is at least a scope, what is the child saying? And this happened with, for example, Arvind Subramaniam, who was a chief economic advisor for Indian government. Him and I were hanging out here, and he just told me that his son, who is at Yale, has sensitized him about the mass incarceration of the African Americans. And then the way he was explaining to me was like he could never get that point across. Not that he was insensitive, But when his child was advocating for that, he had to pay attention to that, and he became also part-time activist. Same happens with LGBTIQ plus communities. When the parents acknowledge or accept their children, they also become somehow participants of this movement. And so I feel your pain and I feel your frustration, Ms. Adhikari. But what we need to do is we need to start not wasting our time. See, every day we will have to talk to them, and don't tell. I mean, this is not the only issue we will disagree with our parents with. There are so many issues, right from what kind of clothes you're wearing to what kind of hairstyle you have. So we have everyday protest in a house. What we need to do is we need to add a moral angle to it. Let's try to show our parents, if you will, a mirror of the world, how the world is looking at this. And if they disagree with you, you don't have to deal with them now. What we do is, because the people we love so immensely, we try to change them. If they're unable to change, we feel pain. We see why is the person I love so much is unable to change. But if you know they're not going to change, you just be like, okay, it's fine. We can still be parents and children. We can still have that relationship, but also have my independent, aspirations as well as goals where I want to talk about these issues. And I think we have to start, and eventually if they change, it's okay. If not. That's why I don't work with old people. It's because pragmatically, it's not helpful for me, because they're going to unfortunately die in 10, 20 years. But I want to work with people who are going to be with me for at least 50 years, right? And that's why I want to take responsibility. And that's why the youthful kind of exchange is very important.
Yeah, that's very important point. And then I always telling young fellows, so if you want to see the change, you need to take action. So there is a lot of hurdle all the time, but if you really want to see the change, you need to take action. So we have more questions from Pavas Maninder. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how this concept of radical Dalit love grows in spite of capitalist oppression that is exercised on minority as well as the people of the global South. Can people truly detain themselves from an oppressive caste system without being anti-capitalist? Can radical love thrive in a world that is doubly oppressive?
Yes, of course. And I think that question has to be thought through a different lens, because the capitalist response is usually political economy response. It's usually the statist response. It's usually worked on a policy response where, we identified as a class. The idea of Dalit love manages to do is to pierce down every system of oppressions. Capitalism is one part of it. Of course, it's very essential and very important part of how it animates our thinking. But it is trying to delegitimize capitalism by the very existence of Dalit love. Because Dalit love is not relying on the materiality or the cheap name of how we exchange value. In capitalist society, we know the value of a human being is reduced to what the labor they can produce. And that's, again, the value is I don't want to give a lesson on Marx, but that's how it is. Value is not given, you're not given the recognized value, and the whole thing then starts culminating into creating more oppressive system. Dalit love itself is actually challenging the fundamental ethic of how you inject hatred in others. We are trying to provide solution to that hatred. We are trying to find new avenues that we can to express ourselves or our grief, not only through violence, but there are other ways where we can talk, where we can fundamentally change or alter the way we negotiate our sense of being in this country, in this world, excuse me. And I think the tentacles of capitalism that we continue to operate also has a human angle to it. There is someone who is capitalist, there is someone who wants to oppress, and in our societies, the capitalist belongs to a certain caste, and our attention is to that. It's not a capitalist as a structure, a macro structure, a neoliberal order coming from the World Bank and IMF. This is all good. These are Brahmin leftist teachers, but also they don't talk about their own siblings trying to be the agents of capitalism in our countries. Right now in India, the research was done by Tarun Khanna, my colleague here at the business school, and Ashutosh Varshni. they identified how many. So they were just trying to find how many CEOs are there who belong to in what caste. And this is especially the fintech, as well as the post 1990s neoliberal economy that operated. 44% were Brahmin CEOs, and I think 41 or 42% were Baniyas, or 39, and the rest of the Kshatriyas and other castes were not even there. So we look at this a very serious problem.
Suraj, you have said being a Dalit means rightful Dalit assertion to encourage fellow feelings and the commonality of sentiments. Could you please elaborate on this briefly?
See, I don't want to start talking about humanism without really accounting to the immense differences we have, and that's why the commonality that I talk about is our common hope, common aspirations. Every parent wants their child to go to nice school, get good education, and be good in their life. No parent wants otherwise. Same aspirations can be of the peasants or the workers in factories or the laborers. We have commonalities. So the point is, our aim is same. If you want your child to thrive, I also want my child to thrive. But what happens is, your child thrives at the cost of my child. Meaning, the opportunity is taken away that was meant to be given to me. And why? Because the structure doesn't operate. And I think what I try to do is try to tell us we have common aspirations. Perhaps it's not about you killing the aspirations or opportunity of my child. What we could do is perhaps figure out a way where our both children can work. And this is just a very simple way of explaining how the collectability informs into our sense. And what I mean by that is, if we have an opportunity, if Dalits have an opportunity, they will create more opportunities for others. They will not confine it to themselves. They will find ways and avenues and other sort of alternative models they will probably propose in this way, so that it is not confined to only you and me. It is not only confined to, what I mean. It just is meant to democratize the whole spaces that we are, and that's what we are seeing doing. That's why I say, make Dalits more job industry owners, give them more resources, and see how they will try to alter our being, which is not then again confined to few but confined to many.
So invest on Dalit more and more. That's necessary. That's a very good point. So this is my final question to you, Suraj, but you can aid some of the things, especially young fellows. If you want to share some message, you can aid on that also. You have said that one person disassociating with the caste itself is not enough, and that the person would have to be culture suicide bomber. How can the caste question be established to the extent that non-Dalit find the courage to challenge their own community? So, and then you can add some final points with this questions. Go ahead, Suraj.
No, thank you for that question. I think it's a good way to put close to this excellent dialogue that we had. We have always disagreed with our own kind. It's not that it's a new thing. We have always, and as I was saying, right from you were baby, what kind of food you wanted to eat, you started protesting. So we always had that. It's not extraordinary. We just have to identify that we can also be rebellious. We don't have to handicap ourselves. And that's the weak strategy. That's the excuse. I don't want that. And I don't frankly want people like that who are saying it's different. You have figured it out so far. Being a member of a Hindu family is to constantly fight. You have survived the mayhem that whole family culture brings in. So you know how to do it. I don't want to tell you how to do it. I don't want to give you prescriptions, but I will tell you one thing. That the way you will develop yourself, the way you will frame your thoughts, they should be rooted in love. They should be rooted in extending your understanding to them. We cannot have a misunderstood relation. And that's why I always was saying that it's always misunderstanding. It's always the falsity that we develop our heap, the what Ambedkar calls, having a dung, cow dung, and we're developing a civilization on that. It cannot do. What we need to perhaps do is, when I say cultural suicide bomber, is for our people, especially people from the dominant castes, to be willing to immolate their cultural privileges, not in Dalits, but in their own spaces. What cultural privileges you have? You have caste, you have class, you have the name, you have the gender, you have the sexuality, you have the resources. These are all cultural capital. I mean, Pierre Bourdieu talks about it. Oliver Cox talk about it, the class capital. So what you can do is, there are many things you have, you don't see it with your naked eyes, but you do. I see that. If you have a certain name, if you're an Adhikari, if you're a Sharma, I know you have so much privileges. Utilize that to shame others. How could you do that? By becoming a cultural suicide bomber. Go into the space and be willing to put yourself at the risk of, because what happens if you are trying to play safe, you don't go to the stage, you just play safe. You just go one step and you come back. If you are willing to go all on, that's when the whole position, that's whole the struggle starts. Because what happens is, unfortunately, people with good mind and good heart only want to go one step. And their one step is not helpful for them, because they will sleep that night. Maybe they will tweet something and they will say, okay, but next day the story is going to start. So that's why we want you to go full on in. And it's wonderful, let me tell you. Immolating the ill-gotten privileges, the rabid rigidity, as well as the supremacist values. Nobody needs that. This is a cancer. This is like a knapsack that you're carrying unnecessarily on your back. Who needs to be violent? Who needs to be rabid? Who needs to be inflexible? Who needs to live like a moron? You want to live simple life, a life of dignity. So if you are willing to go there, it's good for you. That's what I say. It's helping you in return by foregoing this. And to give the message to confine, Brother Pradeep, I think it is, I have already said, the Nepali Dalit movement inspires me. You all inspire me, and let that inspiration strive. With the new Dalit Lives Matter Nepal, there are new forms of international ways of interrogating into these questions, and let us commit ourselves to the human value. Nations are fake creations. One day there is nation and another there is not, and it has been historically proven. Civilizations have risen and civilizations have gone. What remained, though, were the great ideas, were the people who contributed to humanity. And that's why we still remember the Greek philosophies, or the ancient Indian philosophies, or the philosophies across the world, be it Islamic world or otherwise. We need to see ourselves into the lineage of these great people, not the tyrants. Our silence and our non-participation makes us that irrelevant people who have been dusted into the ground. Nobody knows their name. But we know the names of people who took courageous stand. And that's where the world remembers. People don't remember the people who just were part of the flow. You being part of the flow, you can live good for yourself or to your child, but what about the next generation? They can only live well, safe, and healthy by you taking an active stand that makes their world better. And that's why the whole climate change is so essential. The elderly people think about their grandchildren, because the kind of world they lived, they want the same, but also they need to make changes, because if something doesn't change now, the succeeding generation is not gonna, and as a community, we always remember our ancestors. So let's always keep providing our reverence to them. Let's offer our recognition to their great sacrifices. It is upon them that we can stand. I stand on my ancestors' shoulders very strongly, as much as you all do. And some of our ancestors were cruel. So let's acknowledge that our ancestors have been cruel. They don't deserve any human respect, and we can disown them for what they did. Or what we could do is we could utilize that and say, I did wrong, my ancestor did wrong, let me correct it. There are various ways we can find. And believe me, an anti-caste struggle is the struggle of 21st century. You are living in this time. This is your time. The time the history page is going to turn, and when it's going to turn and the book is going to close, there are a few names that will be remembered. Let that name be yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Suraj Yengde. If you want to know more about the Dr. Suraj ideas, please buy and read Caste Matters book. So this is a very important book. Please buy and read. So thank you very much for joining us today. Friends, we have come to the end of today's episode and also the end of the first season of Caste Conversation. We'll return with a fresh new season very soon. Please stay tuned. For more information, you can visit our new webpage, www.dalitlivesmatter.org, and get in touch through our social media page. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, actually everywhere. On behalf of Dalit Lives Matter Nepal, I want to thank you everyone for your solidarity. I'm also thankful to my friends, Prakriti, Bridika, Sulochana, Roshan, Vijay, Vikas for making this possible. Thank you all the guests who speak here at Caste Conversation. Thank you everybody for being with us. We'll see you soon in the fresh new season very soon. I don't know date right now because of Corona is rising. So be safe. Till then, this is Pradeep Pariyar signing off from Caste Conversation. Namaste. Stay safe. Stay happy. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Suraj. See you soon.
Jai Bhim to everybody. Thank you. I love all. You are beautiful faces. Early morning, seeing this face was like a compliment. I would have just stayed at some. So this is great. You all are beautiful. I really mean it. And hopefully, when the Corona tones down, we'll have more time rubbing shoulders to shoulders and fighting together. Yes. I love you all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Dalit love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.